making the invisible visible. I think a lot of organizations, when it comes to what they can change overnight, it is something as simple as transparency. It's really important, in answering that question. And that's why I always say to organizations, you're not going to get the best out of your people if you're not honest with them, if you're not transparent with them.
Welcome to the podcast, where we introduce you to incredible humans who share their journeys with the mission to inspire you to harness your own inner tenacity to drive your life and career forward. And now, your host, Adam Posner.
We have an exciting chat here today, and I'm interviewing somebody that I've known for a bit, and I've gotten to know and love her, and hopefully you will too. I'm going to tell you a couple of things. We're not going to be talking about AI today. We're going to be talking about culture. So welcome to our panel, Culture and Practice, Redesigning Systems That Hold Back Today. And going to be a real talk, no buzzword bingo. My name is Adam Posner. I'm the founder of NHP Talent Group. We're a recruiting firm based out of New York, all things frontier tech. You can find me later. I'll tell you a little bit about frontier tech. I'm also the host of the Podcast, top global career podcast, where I unpack my guests' life journeys told through the lens of their career. 7 years, 500 episodes. Abby's been one of my guests, and I am a true believer in serendipity. And the people that you meet in life are meant to be there for a reason. And my guest today is certainly one of those. I'm incredibly honored and excited to introduce Abby Adamson. And good people know good people. And our mutual friend, Cindy O'Day, who's here. Hi.
Woo, Cindy.
Introduced us, and we keep the good times rolling. Abby is a true workplace culture expert whose mission and superpower is to support organizations that want to change, grow, and thrive with an inclusive lens. She is a cultural barometer with a goal to set people up for success. And today, I guarantee that you are going to learn a couple of things. So, Abby, let me ask you. Let's start off. Hi, Abby.
Hi, Adam.
I'm glad you found the stage.
Well, it's all Cindy's fault. Just if in doubt, blame Cindy.
And I'm really excited that we're going to talk about culture. I think we need to talk more about culture. Anytime we're in a TA or HR space, we're talking about workplace, we're talking about technology, but today we're going to break it down. So, Abby.
Yes.
Do you think most organizations are actually building an ecosystem where different people could thrive in different ways? Or are we still treating talent like a monolith and hoping that the same inputs work for everybody?
Okay, so what I would say to that is, how many of you have stopped to think about your organizational ecosystem? So using myself and Adam as an example, Adam, I look at you and I see a rose. I think I'm a daffodil.
My wife would say I'm a thorn, but that's a different story.
The point is, what we all need in an organization, none of us are monoliths, even if you belong to a marginalized identity group or not. And I think what a lot of organizations do is treat their people like blueprints rather than a living ecosystem. So I developed the SERN framework, which is SERN, which stands for soil, exposure, roots, and nutrients, because every single one of these is what people need in their organizations to be set up for success. And just for an example, I was working with a bank a few years ago, and they called me in because they were having loads of cultural, workplace culture problems. And they said, "Hey, Abby, we seem to be losing a lot of our parents that are returning back to work, and we also seem to be losing a lot of our middle managers." So I went in, I did some, exploratory things, and I said, "Oh, well, you have a roots problem." So a lot of your returning back to work parents, they're not being set up for success in a way where they can't see their progression. They've had some of their work taken from them because you have made it so that they feel like because they can't be a working parent and also strive to better themselves in their career. So that's why they're leaving and going elsewhere. Then you have your middle managers who are being taught by very condescending leadership teams who feel like they can't bring their authentic selves to work. So they're taking all those skills, those knowledge, and they're taking it to another business. So what you have is embedded in your roots. Your organization doesn't have a culture problem, it has a roots problem. The toxicity is inside the roots and it's inside the soil. You cannot. I'm Nigerian and everything we do is about proverbs. So as us Nigerians would say, you cannot plant a mango and expect a grape to grow. It's impossible. The only thing that's going to grow is the root, the seed that you planted into the root. And that's the analogy that I use for organizations when they're up a creek without a paddle.
I knew we were onto something when I said to transform, let's do this panel over here. Abby, you guys are going to learn a thing or two. So let's dig in a little bit. And I can't stand performative workplaces. I can't stand these words. So let's talk about this. Most companies say they want an inclusive culture, but their systems reward speed and hierarchy and the loudest voice in the room. What are everyday structures, meetings, decision-making, feedback loops that quietly undermine inclusion without leaders even realizing it?
Okay, so for most of us in organizations, if you have so I haven't worked in-house for so long. What do you call it? Performance management, right? You have like performance management. Yes. A lot of them, when they say they are anonymous, we know they're not really anonymous.
Someone's actually reading them on the back end, right?
Like anonymous, or please put your employee ID in, and just like, yeah, okay. But the most part is a lot of these things are honest, So again, with organizations, you need to have a look at yourself. You need to have a look at leadership. It should always be a waterfall approach. I think where a lot of leaders get it wrong is they expect, and for some reason, they find themselves quite surprised by the behaviors that they see mirrored during I don't like saying lower levels of the organization, but if your organization is hierarchical, a junior member of the team versus someone up. And I'm like, but they haven't seen those behaviors exhibited high up, so how do they know what good looks like? And this is the kind of flow that organizations need to be looking at.
They need to look in the mirror first before they look at their employees.
They do.
So,
and also, because I want to go back to my framework, because my framework's good, if I do say so myself, is when we're talking about, looking from an inclusion lens, I have something called, I said the ease for exposure. Who gets visibility in an organization? A lot of organizations give the same projects, the same visibility to the loudest people in the room. Not necessarily because they're good, but because they go for golf, or they go for after work drinks, or if you're working in a virtual organization, they stay on Zoom for a little bit longer. So who gets the visibility in your organization? Who gets the projects that allows them to be championed, so to speak? And then another thing I want to say is, I call it the roots because it's the underground networks. Every organization has an official and an unofficial way of communicating. So the conversations that you're having on your Slack channels, they may be happening, but also when Slack goes down, people have WhatsApp groups that they're having conversations on as well.
They're always sidebarring and side chats, right?
Yes, there are, exactly. And, when we're talking about the roots and, the soil in your organization, these are the things that you need to be looking into.
So this kind of frames up the next part of it, and we are going to play a little buzzword bingo here. And the buzzword is psychological safety. Who has that on their bingo card for Transform out there? And it's become a buzzword, right? In practical terms, Abby, what does really creating a place of psychological safety look place on a random Tuesday, right? Not just at your performance review, not just at the team meeting, not just at the happy hour, but like what behaviors would we see from leaders and teammates who really help create a place of true psychological safety? Okay, so how many of you have heard of Amy Edmondson, who she didn't coin the term psychological safety, but she definitely made it famous. So Amy has been a Harvard researcher for a very long time, and she talks about psychological safety being not necessarily being you being nice, but you being honest in a way that doesn't blow back on you. That doesn't mean that you're being punished. It doesn't mean that you're having your pay rise held back. And this is what we mean about psychological safety. It's the space to be able to get things wrong. It's the space to be able to be vulnerable, especially if you're a leader, where for most of us, when we look at our leaders, we expect them to always have the answers. And that's just a fallacy. Leaders in an organization need to be able to say on a Tuesday afternoon, actually, Abby, I don't know. Can you help me out with this? You've got to be able to trust the people that you've hired into the organization to do their job. When I look at a leader, I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for someone who's human.
I'm looking for someone who can say to me, actually, Abby, I don't have the answer to that. Can we figure it out together?
One thing I want to add to that too, I've been thinking a lot about failures. We all have failures in our life. We all make mistakes professionally and personally. God knows I've made a few. I haven't made any in the last few days, which is very rare for me in Las Vegas. But I've been thinking a lot about this framework of reframing failures into experiments, right? And having this idea of, no, I didn't fail. It's an experiment. So as long as you learn and grow, it's not a failure. It's an experiment. So let's continue this. And I want to talk about when teams say they want more diverse perspectives, but we're still hearing the same few voices. What's usually the issue there? Is it confidence, power dynamics, poorly designed processes, or something else? So it's someone who's a consultant, who has a non-biased view, who doesn't work for those organizations. People bring you in to really be, Dr. Abby, what are you seeing in diagnosing and fixing?
Okay, I'm going to push back on the term confidence.
Okay.
The reason why I'm going to push back on the term confidence is that every time we say that someone needs more confidence, in what space? Because I've had confidence in certain organizations, and that has been mistaken for arrogance. That has been mistaken for...
No. And I'm interrupting you for a reason here. So when Abby was first on my podcast, she shared an incredible story about this experience in her life, how the confidence was, yes, you did. Anyone could go to the podcast and check it out. I'll link it up. And you spoke about this story.
I did.
And it really resonated with me how your confidence was misinterpreted for arrogance or being aggressive. It's really important to talk about.
Yes, because in organizations that don't set you up for success, I don't know if I'm allowed to come in and be my best self. Now, one of the things, my heritage looks back to how I show up in the workplace a lot when I was working in-house. And one of the things is that my grandma used to say to me is that, really and truly, Abby, bitterly, you shouldn't really care if people don't like you. You just need to be shit hot at your job. Now I'm like, okay, but I'm still human. I want to be liked. When I was still shit hot at my job, people still had a problem. I didn't smile too much. I was like, oh, what? Oh, you need to be more assertive. You need to have more executive presence, which I think is incredibly loaded, by the way. Because executive presence, what does that mean?
What does that mean in this day and age?
And that's why I push back on confidence, because confidence is in the eye of the beholder. And if you don't have an organization that has psychological safety, if you don't have an organization that has good roots where I can show up to be confident and you trust me to do my job, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to slink into the shadows.
Very well said. And it's not something on our list here too, but you also don't want to have a workplace where you're enabling folks to hide behind the scenes. At the same time, you want to embrace folks and reward people for speaking up. It's a tough balance, and it all starts with leadership. So Abby, if a leader generally wants to redesign culture inside their organization, starting tomorrow morning when they go back, to the office, and not go and launch a 6-month initiative, what are 1 or 2 specific changes that they can make on how to maybe run a meeting or get decisions made? Let's give some people some actionable insights and advice here.
So what I say to leaders is remix who's in the room. Who's not in the room with you? A lot of times when I go in and I sit down and I'm just observing, I remember working with an organization, they shall not be named. I remember working with an organization, and I was with them for about just shy of a year. And I remember certain meetings that I would sit in, and I'm like, I'm only hearing from the same people. Why is X person not in here? Why is Rebecca not in here? Why is James not in here? Why is Adam not in here? Or Cindy? And they'll say, oh, I've never asked their opinion. So with leaders, I'm like, but how do you know what good looks like if you don't have different people in the room? I really hate this term. Please forgive me, I'm going to use it. Diversity of thoughts. How do you know that you have, they talk about diversity and inclusion and all of this, but I keep hearing the same voices. Another thing that I would say to leaders is when you're looking at the SERN framework is allow yourself to be vulnerable. Allow yourself to show up in a way where your people can see that, okay, well, they didn't fall out of the sky with all of the answers because none of us did. You need people to be able to steer your ship, so to speak, all together. And I think leaders, there's so much scarcity mindset, I think, with leaders, and what leaders need more of is an abundance mindset, and I think that is something that is a very quick and easy fix. I actually think it's the low-hanging fruit. Matter of fact, the fruit is so low, it's rolling down the hill.
You don't even have to pick it. You can just grab it off the floor.
Exactly.
Yes. I know it's not I know it's not on our notes here too, but I think about when someone says, be yourself at work, be your authentic self at work. And that can be scary for a lot of folks because what does your authentic self look like? How does someone gauge how authentic, like say you're a new employee, how do you kind of dip your toes in the water and get a barometer, a pulse check of are people really being themselves at work?
Well, that's not my job as a new employee. That's the organization when I walk in to make sure that I'm set up for success in a way that I don't need to test it. I just know the moment I've walked in. I've worked with organizations as an external partner, where they said, oh, Abby, don't think our workplace culture is really good. We need you to put some, frameworks in place. And I've gone and I'm like, actually, this place is good vibes. I've sat in, in these meetings, I've gone out with you all, and this is good stuff. Likewise, I've had organizations say, oh, we have amazing culture. And I go in and I'm like,
it's shite.
I'm like, this place is dark. So it's not on, the onus is never, I don't think the onus is on, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but the onus is seldom on the employee.
Right.
The onus should be on the organization as a whole. I think inclusion and workplace culture is all of our responsibility. But as a new employee, I shouldn't be going in and gauging how safe it is for me.
They need to set that up
here. You
should
be able to invite me in, and I should feel that from my first day, the moment I'm onboarded.
Hey everybody, Adam here from the Podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by the team at Fountain. Fountain is your full-service frontline workforce management platform. I have to tell you, Fountain's offerings are some of the most robust I've seen for any product in the space. They offer full solutions for hiring, managing, and retention. They are truly a one-stop shop focused on the frontline workforce. They also create informative content using their data. For example, they analyze a bunch of data from their fast food chains and created a trend report you could download now on their website. They also have a new ebook out called Frontline Voices. There's a lot to dive into. Certainly check it out. And you could learn more at fountain.com, linked in the show notes. Thank you.
Yeah, and breaking down walls, breaking down cliques, breaking down unseen. I've seen it. I've seen the all boys club. I've seen the all girls club. I've seen the clubs within companies. And it's hard because by human nature, we're tribal. We're meant to group up. And I think it's really important for a lot of companies to make sure that those tribes are important support groups, but don't let them dominate the culture in your workplace. I think that's hypercritical. I've experienced it on both sides. Yeah. And it can be detrimental to a business. So Abby, you've worked with many organizations on culture. Let's spill some tea here. What's the most uncomfortable truth leaders eventually have to face about themselves before their culture could actually change?
Okay, I have so much.
We did a lot of prep for this because Abby really has a lot to share.
Yeah.
And we want to ensure that she's sharing her truth, the hard work that she's done over the years, and especially someone who's an expert in this space to really share with you the good stuff here. What do you got for us, Abby?
Making the invisible visible. I think a lot of organizations, when it comes to what they can change overnight, I'm not going to tell anyone to reinvent the wheel here. It is something as simple as transparency. I say this because a lot of organizations, they'll say to me, Abby, we're very diverse. I'll say, yes, you are very diverse, but you're not very inclusive. Or they'll say to me, Abby, you're very inclusive. I say, yes, you're very inclusive, but you're not very diverse.
Key difference.
Very key. It's like equity and equality. Everyone knows the difference between equity and equality. Okay.
Well, I don't think some people do. What's the difference?
Okay. So nice and easy. So equality would be sameness and equity would be fairness. So I always use the analogy of watering plants. Equality would mean every plant getting watered at the same time, same frequency. Equity would mean each plant getting watered according to its specific needs. So each plant has the same quality of life rather than the same quality and same amount of water. Does that make sense? I think it does.
I'm so glad we're recording that so I can share that with the world. That was so damn good.
Because I talk about equity and equality a lot, and I think it's really important, in answering that question. And that's why I always say to organizations, you're not going to get the best out of your people if you're not honest with them, if you're not transparent with them. I just heard a talk where someone said that they believe that there's no such way in measuring authenticity. And I disagree with that, actually, massively. I almost said so, but I don't want to be combative.
That maybe if you had a mic in your hand, you might do it.
I was like, Abby, not right now. We're all on the same side. But the reason why I disagree is that a lot of us, I'm going to lead with, everyone is emotionally, most people are emotionally intelligent. You know when someone has been authentic with you or not, and I think you can measure it. When someone is showing up and asking you to bring your authentic, when you can bring your authentic self to work, when you know that you can show vulnerability without being punished, when you know that, you have allies in the room and you have champions and sponsors in an organization. This is how we flip workplace culture. What a lot of non-leaders or those who don't have proximities to influence and power and all that stuff, where they get it wrong is people say to me, oh, well, culture is something that the leaders do. And I'm like, no, culture is something that we all do. If you watch my TED talk, it's on culture. Who owns culture? Go and watch it, it's great. But culture is an all of us problem. And the only way we're going to be able to move the dial forward is making sure that we're all part of the conversation.
Mm-hmm. I love it. And it's so funny. Authenticity is moved from a buzzword. And someone asked me about authenticity, being authentic. I go, well, the proof is in the pudding. Check out the receipts. Are they practicing what they preach, or they all talk over there? Yeah. So Abby has a book coming out. Abby's book is coming out in August. It's called Culture Blooming. First and foremost, love the title. And if you could tell by all the botanical, horticultural references that we've been dropping over here, Abby, first and foremost, what did you learn about yourself in the process of writing this book?
Oh, because my publisher's Barrett Kohler and the distributors are Penguin Random House. So, really, really big literary giants. So I was a little bit like, oh, they're going to not make me have autonomy and stuff. I was surprised about how relaxed I was, about trusting the process. I didn't know much about writing a book, or, when you walk into what do you have? I was going to say Waterstones, but that's British. What do you have in this country? Barnes and Noble, that's it. You walk into a Barnes and Noble and you see a book, you just don't know the process that goes into the finished product. And I think my editor would say how relaxed and how much I said, oh yeah, sure. I think I was quite relaxed. I like that they trusted what I needed to say. And what I learned about myself is I have a lot of patience. I don't care what my sisters or my mum say. I have a lot of patience.
What was the hardest part for you in the process? Where were the stumbling blocks, roadblocks?
I think the hardest part, I really didn't want I identify as a Black woman. I was born in Africa, raised in Europe, and I live in America for my sins. So,
nice move, buddy.
So I think for me, I didn't want the book necessarily to be about identity politics. I didn't want it to be about, obviously, how I show up and the fact that I'm a digital nomad. That funnels into it, but I really wanted it to be a book about everyone. Whether you identify as a boomer, I don't know how old the boomers, 75-year-old white man born in Nantucket or, somewhere very bougie, or you are someone who
Nantucket.
Nantucket, I don't know, I was thinking of Martha's Vineyard. Or someone, born into a working class, socioeconomic, lower class background, and you have other obstacles. I wanted there to be a common ground with this book because, as I said, culture is for all of us. And I think there's so much that brings us together. I think a lot of, the conversations that have been happening over the past few years have been focused on what sets us apart, that I really wanted this book to be the bridge and in us looking at each other as neighbors and doing better by each other.
I love it. I'm really proud of you. I'm happy for you. Proud to call you a friend, a mentor, an ally. Abby, what do you want people to walk away with after they read this book? What do you want them to learn? What's that key learning?
So I as an academic, I was very, I was hyper aware. I didn't want this to read as an academic book. I didn't want it to read as something I didn't want it to be a hard to read thing. It's only 40,000 words. 40,000 words, 40. So there's only 6 chapters, and I wanted it to just get to the point. This particular framework, my framework is actually being used right now by Match Group. So if you're into the swiping, Tinder and Hinge, just think, if you're going through a great experience now, I'm probably behind it because the people at Match Group right now are very happy because they're using this framework. Okay, so I am fiddling into your love lives right now. But no, ultimately, I want people to be able to pick it up and just implement the framework. You don't, of course, I want you to hire me, but you don't necessarily need me to be in the room because it is that straightforward. This is it's 4 parts of the framework. This is how you look at it, and this is how you implement it. Very straightforward.
I love it. Everyone can connect with Abby afterwards. We'll link up the book. You can certainly pre-order. So, Abby, this is your first transform. Yeah. Give us some of your hot takes. What your barometer? What are you feeling out there? What's the temperature in the room?
I'm not going to lie. I did find it a bit overwhelming. When Cindy was like, "No, this isn't one of the little ones that we go to, Abs." I was like, "Oh, there's a lot of people."
There's a Super Bowl. Yeah.
It's lovely. I think it's always nice to meet different people from all walks of life. I love that we have a common thing, which is people. You know, whether that's a talent or whether that's HR or what it is, people. I don't want to say I'm anti-AI, but you know, I'm a little bit slower to get into AI. I think that the machines are going to take over in 10 years, and I'm going to be the only one that's not clamored by them because I haven't.
Abby, we went 32 minutes without saying AI. You literally just broke the whole thing. I thought we were going to make it the whole 35 minutes, and you had to go there and you had to say AI. Drinks are on you tonight. Thank you. There you go. That's your fault.
Because everything's AI focused, you know, so it's hard to escape it. But I just think in the middle of all of the technology, I think it's really important that we don't lose what's important, which is human at the heart of everything, you know. And yes, of course, this AI makes life easier, but remember that it's still human made and it's still needs to be human centric. And as someone who's all about people, I just don't want all of us to lose sight of that.
Abby, leave us with some words of optimism now. What is lighting you up? What is putting a smile on your face in the world of people, workplace, and culture?
Okay, so I won't get political. I'm pretty sure people can put 2 and 2 together. I think the last 16 months or so has been very tumultuous in the US, but what has made me feel so much better lately is that I feel the pendulum is swinging back the other way. I thought there was a moment where organizations that did not care about their people, you know, they were pulling projects and things that had to do with inclusion and around setting people up for success. But now I see that pendulum swinging back the other way, where companies are like, actually, we're losing very good talent. So we need to put this back in. We need to invest back into our people. And that makes me very happy. It's really nice to be able to, you know, work with organizations that remember that without the people, you ain't sugar, honey, iced tea.
And for me, I mean, this is my 3rd year here. Transforming gets better and better every year. And for me, it's the 2 C's. It's community and conversation. I urge everybody out there to say hello to somebody you don't know.
Yeah.
Step out of your comfort zone. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know where it's going to lead to. And I'm not taking the final thought here. Abby, leave us with the final words.
I was just going to. It was completely all about me. But I wore this skirt yesterday and it was such a conversation starter. I said to Cindy, should I just wear it again tomorrow? She's like, wear it again tomorrow. I was like, okay then. So yeah, fashion and all that. But just remember to be good to each other. I think most of us are fighting battles that we all can't see. And I think that we should all give each other a little bit of grace. And, you know, remember your soil, remember the exposure, remember the roots, remember the nutrients, and remember to pour into yourself as well, because you can't give from an empty cup.
Abby Adamson, everybody. I want to thank everybody for joining us. My name is Adam Posner. Please check out the podcast. Please connect with us on LinkedIn. Remember, be good to yourself and be better to others. And have a great transform, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wisdom is forever, but for us, it's time to go. Thank you for joining us. Luckily, we'll be back with our next episode soon, jam-packed with more incredible humans. Thank you for listening, subscribing, and sharing. To join the conversation, search the podcast on LinkedIn. And to catch up on past episodes and more info, please visit www.thepodcast.com.